Welcome to episode 343 of the DFO Rundown, presented by Bet365. Download the app today and use the promo code NATION, NATION, to get in on a huge range of markets. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. And good luck for all of you in fantasy football playoffs as it begins tonight. Get in. Good luck. I'm Jason Gregor. We welcome in Frank Saravalli. Frank, do you play fantasy football?
I don't. I kind of lost interest in it. Are you in the mix for playoffs this year?
No, I am not. Defending champ didn't make it. Gave up too many picks last year, but that's all right. It was worth it. When you win our league, it's you're basically playing for free for like the next 5 years. So I made some trades this year again, so now I kind of loaded up. It's a little bit kind of how it goes in our league sometimes. I probably could have made the playoffs. I just had too many key injuries to running backs. So if you lose all your running backs, kind of hard to win. So
who's the last Stanley Cup champ in the NHL to win and not make the playoffs?
The last champ, New Jersey. No, they made, so Carolina, New Jersey made the finals, but then didn't make the playoffs. Geez, I can't remember the guy who won, but then didn't make it.
One of our loyal listeners, I'm sure, will tell us.
What about Carolina? Did they make the playoffs in 2007?
Yeah, that might be the winning ticket.
That would be my guess.
But that's you now. Congratulations.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, it's not
2007, you are correct. Carolina did not, but am I forgetting a team in between now and then?
Tampa, Pittsburgh, Boston. I don't think
Detroit went in back-to-back years.
Yeah, Pittsburgh. Nope. Chicago, no. LA, no.
Boston, no. St. Louis,
no. Washington, no.
The Avs, Vegas. No, I think that's it.
Yeah. So
the Panthers are well on track to make it this year.
Oh, yeah. No, they'll make it. We'll actually have a little Stanley Cup chat a little bit later on in the pod. But let's start a few topics. Let's start in Vancouver. JT Miller back practicing with the team. Demko back playing for the Canucks. They're still, I don't think they're where they want to be. They didn't look good against St. Louis, Frank. What do you make of the Canucks right now?
They are one of the most perplexing teams in the league because they are absolute world beaters on the road and cannot win at home.
Oh, it's amazing. They're brutal.
10-2-1 on the road. And you watch, maybe not so much this last road trip. Like there were fits and starts and a few come from behinds, and it wasn't totally clean, but some of their previous trips have been like the best hockey they've played all year. And then, you hear the players talk about, okay, we figured it out. We're on the right track. And then they go home and lay a few eggs. I can't figure it out. And this, by the way, one of the best home teams in the league last year.
Yeah, they've won a grand total of 4 home games in 14. They're 4-6-4. They're tied with Chicago and a few other teams for fewest home wins, but those teams have played fewer home games. So yeah, it is normally, home ice is where you want to take advantage, and usually teams do it. And it's not just because of the last change. I think it's more so fans, they get into it. They can add some energy to the building for your team. And, lots of times, there's more chances of facing a team on the second half of a back-to-back when you're at home than when you're on the road. And it is definitely an oddity for that team. And, I think getting JT Miller back whenever he gets back will obviously be a big boost for them. The one big positive has really, Jake DeBrusk has really been on fire for them lately.
Yeah, and the other big positive is getting Thatcher Demko back. And
yeah,
I don't know how long it's going to take for him to really work into a spot where he feels super comfortable again. And in some ways, not absolving him of a 4-goal against effort to start the season, but it felt like his team kind of left him out to dry against the Blues the other night.
Dude, did you? He's probably in his like, hey, thanks guys for letting me have a kind of like feel my way back in the league. It was almost like his teammates are like, well, Thatcher, you know what? We really want to give you a lot of shots and a lot of grade A chances just to see you test yourself. But I will say, Frank, I can't recall the last time a starting goalie came back from an injury and was the backup for 2 games and on the bench, because talking about like, what if there was an injury or something, he had to go in and you're sitting on the bench for 40, 50 minutes and then suddenly you got to go in. It's just an odd. I can't recall that. Like normally when the guy comes back.
I don't think it's odd. I mean, I know a lot of people said that, but here's the thing. He had put his knee and his body through so much in the last 10 days ramping up to get there that I think they wanted to just let him cool off for a minute and just, let everything rest before then attacking it again. He really wanted to test himself.
No, I don't discount that. But what if all of a sudden he goes in cold in the middle of the second period? Is that better?
No, I think you do everything you can to avoid that, but that's not how it works.
No, I know. So I just found it a little bit odd, but they are a team that, they're still in the playoff mix fairly comfortably. But I think of all the playoff teams in the West, they've been the one team I think that's yet to really find any sort of consistency.
Well, I totally agree. I mean, the home and road splits are an indication of that, but just listening to Rick Tocchet is an indication of that. It's been so up and down and all over the place. Pettersson started so poorly. Now he's, he was pretty good for a stretch, and yet it almost kind of feels like they're not ready to, praise him yet because he's not all the way back and is not sort of taking control and driving play the way that he should for a player of that salary. It's been an odd year in Vancouver for sure. And I think the tough part is their front office had been waiting to this point to really try and avoid making moves. They wanted to get their whole complement of their roster on the ice at the same time. Finally get, for a while it was, okay, Dakota Joshua's one of the guys out. And then it was, it's been one guy after the other. JT Miller leaves. Thatcher Demko is working his way back. Now Philip Hronek is out and out for a couple months. That there's no real way to even get a look at exactly what you've built. And that part I think has been hard, but if there's a deal in front of them to make that makes their team better, particularly more efficient moving the puck from their back end, they're going to do it.
Going to a team that's been obviously a huge disappointment. The Nashville Predators are in dead last in the NHL. They went for, people were writing, they won the summer, and now they are dead last. And maybe, Frank, the most surprising statistic coming out of Nashville, through 29 games, Roman Josi has been on the ice for the most goals against at even strength in the entire NHL at 43. He's on pace for like 121, which is mind-blowing. That just illustrates, I'm not saying that Josi himself is obviously responsible for all the goals against, far from it, but when your best guy is on the ice for that many goals against, it illustrates everything that is wrong in Nashville.
I truly don't know where they go from here. I think a coaching change is probably going to end up being in order because it has to be. It almost feels like watching Andrew Brunette that he's even ready for it with the way that this has gone. I think Barry Trotz has done everything he can do to avoid doing that, but they sense it there. They just do. And a trade, you could make a trade right now, but I would argue that it's a mathematical. You said, like, you were out in front of it a couple weeks ago and said stick a fork in them. You said their season was over, and it's not that I didn't agree. I just hadn't really crunched the numbers yet. They need 73 points in their last 53 games.
It's not.
That's like a bare minimum. Like that's like the least you can get and get in. That's a 113 point pace. This team hasn't shown anywhere capable of getting close to 113 point pace, let alone doing it for a 50 game stretch.
Yeah. They'd have to go 36, 16 and 1. It ain't happening.
No. And that's, again, what if the threshold moves to 95 points or 96 points, whatever it might be to get in? So I think we kind of touched on this on Monday. I think there's a real chance that the 8 teams that are in right now in the West and the 8 teams that are in right now in the East are it. Now, maybe there's one spot up for grabs. Maybe 15 out of 16 are decided, but we're getting dangerously close to that territory, and it's not even Christmas yet.
Yeah. And like just for Nashville to be so like dead last, like it's not like, okay, you know what? They've had a disappointing start. They're a few points out of the playoffs, but they found their stride. They're not finding their stride at all. It's not getting better. It's arguably getting worse.
No,
And
look at the game in Calgary the other night. 3 1-goal leads that they had. And not only that, like you cough all those up, you lose, and your captain gets hurt on top of it.
And you lost, Frank, to the team that hadn't scored 4 goals in a game since October 13th, right? And you allowed 4 goals in 2 periods.
It's almost like they're waiting for something bad to happen every time they play. They're in one. And
dude,
I think
they need to get in one, if to quote Mike Tomador.
Yeah,
they might need a team party or something, because I don't know what they're gonna. Because last year I know they turned it around when the no concert go or whatever it was, but I don't see that happening this year.
Here's the biggest thing that the Nashville Predators need. They need vision. What are we doing here? What's our plan? And are we going to commit to it and stick to it? Whatever direction that might be, I think they're so caught in the middle that anyone could probably get on board with either side. But 13 months ago, they were a rebuilding team. David Poile had left, put the rebuild on a tee, acquired these first-round picks, shipped out a bunch of players. Their salary cap picture was clean and clear. They had lots of opportunity and a pretty good prospect base. Then you mentioned the U2 thing. They went on a 15-game winning streak. They get to the playoffs. They probably could have beaten the Canucks in the first round. They didn't. And at some point along the way, Barry Trotz and/or ownership or someone had convinced them, hey, we can spend some money this summer, make a splash, and go from playoff team to contending team. The whiplash of that is really what's the most problematic here. And it's not a knock on Barry Trotz, but he's also never worked a day in NHL management in his life prior to being handed the GM role. He's been a coach, he's been in rooms and meetings and sat there, but he's never year in and year out worked in an NHL front office. He's handed the keys, and now this team's in an absolute mess. Which way are they going? They've got one of the oldest rosters in the league that they're committed to. Do you either double or triple down on that now? You're not digging out of it this season, so you're basically, if you're going to make a trade and bring in more reinforcements right now, you're hoping that they can gel in time for next season. Okay, if you make a coaching change, that's not going to impact your vision, in my opinion, one way or the other. But even if you wanted to sell off and commit to the rebuild, which pieces from your team can you actually move?
Yeah, I think they got to look at a retool. They've only had one top 10 pick in the salary cap era. That was Seth Jones in 2013. So, you know what? The last thing they need to do now is try to win this year. Honestly, I know that you can never ask players to lose, but management, hey, stick with what's going on. You know, if
you don't even need to ask players; they're doing it for you already.
Yeah, fair point. But you know, if Yossi's out any extended period of time, Frank, that's a gift. It's a gift in a way, because your season was over. You might as well have a terrible season, give the best odds you can in the lottery. You're then going to get a top 3 pick for sure. And then you move on and, you readjust, and maybe you definitely got to find a center. You look at some guys. There are lots of examples of players who go to a new city and struggle the first year, and then they come back the next year and they're better. Like, I don't think Stamkos and Marshall are going to be this bad. Again, I could be wrong, but that would be my plan in Nashville, is just to say, you know what? It's a wasted season as far as the standings go, but it might be the best season as far as development and getting a really good young player into the mix. Because, like, since Seth Jones, like, who's even their best draft pick since then? Like Forsberg, well, no, he was before then. Fiala, but they traded him. I'm trying to think of, like, Dante Fabro, no. Tolvanen, no.
They're all gone.
Yeah, like Askerov's gone. So they they've got to develop some guys from within, and
they've got some. They have some really good pieces. Like teams are really interested in Fedor Svechkov, and like Tanner Molendyk is a good piece.
Yeah,
and
but just keep those guys. I think they need to.
I think they are. But they've got capital if they wanted to use it right now in 3 first-round picks. If they wanted to make a trade today to, the old anvil disguised as a life raft, they could do it.
Yeah. Hey, one other thing.
That's why I would advocate, not that I'm in the position of advocating, but the best course right now is probably to do nothing.
Yes. Wholeheartedly agree. Yeah. Just take your lumps, be patient. Don't come out with some big grandiose statement, calling out your players, calling out your coach. Like, can they play better? Sure. But at this point, you don't want them to play much better. Like, what are you going to finish? 6th worst, 7th worst? All that does is put you out of the top 5 for the lottery. Does you no good.
It's a tough situation. I was talking to one GM yesterday who said he has anxiety just thinking about their team. Honestly, it's nightmare fuel for anyone that's in that situation and swings big. Would you make the coaching change though?
I wouldn't at this point. If I'm going to make a coaching change, because now maybe it is Burnett. But again, why am I making a coaching change now to try to better my team? If you really believe he's not the answer, then make the coaching change with 20 games to go. If you have somebody that you feel can help you, because he at least can come in, Frank, get to know the players. That's more of a set it up for the next year. But even then, I'm like, why would I risk it then? Because what if the new coach comes in and we get the new coach bounce and it screws us out of a higher draft?
Yeah, you absolutely bleep yourself at the worst time of the year.
That doesn't make any sense. So
at least you'd come by it honestly, getting to the lottery. But I'm with you. I just think at some point there's also a question of culture that I think.
Well, if he's that bad, you're right.
I'm not saying he is. I'm just saying this culture right now is horrible.
Yeah. Well, losing's the worst.
It's non-existent, and they've lost whatever capital that they build up. As Barry Trotz had talked when he came in about getting back to the quote Nashville way. It's gone. Is there someone on that roster from a trade perspective, if you were another team, that you'd like to pluck off of Nashville?
Oh God. Yeah. Like, because I think right now there's a lot of guys that you're going to be buying, you're buying a stock when it's low and you're confident that, it can get up and get better. I
would take Jonathan Marchessault off their hands. I'm not concerned about the term on that deal. And I don't think the cap hit is egregious.
Well, it's not terrible. No. It's long, but the hit itself isn't high. It's the term, right? But if you can convince him because he's got 3 years left after this, depending on what the ask is, I would
love, if I'm the Rangers, I would love Jonathan Marchessault. I've got cap space. He fits in on the right side. I don't know. Yeah.
Look, there's a few guys like the blue line to me. Now Shea, you're not going to get it all, but Luke Schenn, I think, is somebody that teams will have interested in. Frank, Jeremy Lauzon. Now,
would you want Shea? I just think the term is too.
No, Shea, I think is. What has he got?
It's a 7-year deal.
Years. Yeah, 6 more years. I don't think so. Probably not. I don't think he's I think he's better than how he's played there, but or maybe he was, you're probably, if I'm an opposing GM, saying, hey, did he look better because of the style and system that Carolina played? Right? I don't know. To be honest, I haven't looked at his game to make an informed,
I think the true answer is that he's probably closer to like a 5.75 or $6 million defenseman.
Fair. Yes. So, I think he can, there's lots of guys who can rebound on that team, but can they all rebound there? That's the question. Like Nashville, I said at the start of the year, they desperately need a center. And so whatever they have to do to find a center, that's what they have to do. Not necessarily this year. Maybe it's in the off season, but like wherever they're picking, if they end up with a really high pick, Frank, they got to take a center. Like they don't have a center in that organization that has real top six potential. Ryan O'Reilly's on the tail end of his career, right?
Yeah, he's on hole 16.
Yeah, he's got, I think he could play and help a team for a long time, but he's not a top line center for sure. He's probably a low.
I just want a vision. Just come out and tell us what do you think is the plan? Like give us a blueprint of what that looks like. Because I don't know that, now that I go back and think about the summer and how I was one of those people that was real quick to anoint them as, hey, this team can vault into contender status, really like the moves that they made, the classic, this team won the offseason. I had them finishing second in the Central. I didn't appreciate at the time the lack of center depth that they have. And B, I didn't stop and take a second to ask the critical think question of how did we get from there to here in such short order?
Yeah, fair.
They just aren't ready. They weren't ready.
Now we talk about the playoff race and we've talked about Van and Nashville. Let's go east. And, here you are, you've got, the Flyers are still battling, scrapping it out, giving you everything they have. They're tied with Tampa, although they have 3 games in hand to the Lightning. Then the Islanders are 1 back, but they've played 4 more games in Tampa. Ottawa's 2 back. They've played 2 more. Pittsburgh's 2 back, but they played 4 more. So I don't know. And I watched the Pens get obliterated there. I'm still not sold on them. If you had to pick, is there any team out? If you had to pick a Philly, the Islanders, Sens, Pens, Blue Jackets, Sabres, maybe, is there any of those that you would give the best chance to press for that 8th and final spot in the East?
Yeah, when it's all said and done this year, I'll be very surprised if the Sens, I don't want to say aren't in, because I do think that the 8 that are in now are going to be the 8, but if they're not at least in the 9th spot. Look at their numbers. Like they've actually defended pretty well.
Yeah.
Their goaltending has not been good. And you'd have to think at some point that normalizes or reverses based on career track record. I think they've gotten some really poor results. Like a lot of their underlying numbers are pretty decent.
Yeah, well, their goaltending early, Allmark wasn't good enough. Just flat out. There's some games he wasn't good enough. So
I think that, I don't know how much has that really changed.
Yeah, he's had a few better performances lately, but like they beat Anaheim last night, and Anaheim didn't really test.
That was an Anaheim game that's one of those games you think that could get your coach fired. Well,
now they're in Toronto tonight, and I know you've been talking about it for a while that you think he's on thin ice, and a game like that definitely doesn't help.
Sucked the life out of that place, that team. Yeah. Sucked the life out of it.
Yeah.
I was just there 2 weeks ago.
And Zegras, I saw you tweet out. You got any update on him and how potentially serious this is?
Not yet. The fact that it's gone on this long and they're seeking this many different opinions, I think would lend you to believe that it's pretty serious. Yeah. So I haven't, I'm waiting for that update. We were told on Tuesday that it would be 24 to 48 hours. So today's Thursday. So checked in again yesterday and didn't have an update.
We're going to get Tyler in, and then after Tyler, we're going to talk about Stanley Cup, because we like to do it at the 3rd and 2/3 way. We're pretty much at the 3rd of the NHL season, but let's bring in Ty to the pod. Ty, how you doing?
I'm doing good, boys. Ready to go with a new edition of Buy or Sell, brought to you by our friends over at Bet365. Download the app today. Use the promo code NATION to get in on a huge range of markets. And something interesting that Bet365 has offered up for a couple of awards is a player versus the field, now that we are at the 1/3 mark, kind of like you said, of the season. So I wanted to float a couple of these past you. There's 2 that they actually have offered up, and then I did a couple of my own, but one that they have offered up is for the Calder Trophy, and it's Matvei Michkov versus the field, with Michkov coming in at -225, the field coming in at +175. Would you take Michkov or the field for the Calder, Jason?
Well, just playing the odds all day long. I would probably take the field. However, In this case, I won't because I picked Michkov at the start of the year, so I got to stick with my pick. So I will. I would have to stick with Michkov, but Celebrini's going to give him a real run here.
Frank?
Yeah, Celebrini's been good. I don't know. It's kind of hard to look away from Michkov right now. I know there was the healthy scratch, but 27 points in 27 games, plus the 3 OT winners, plus that team is only really in contention because of him. Kind of hard to pick someone else right now. Although it is amazing. You talk about a team and a situation, and was it a month ago that I was giving love to Dustin Wolf and raising the flag for him? And I don't know. It's the way life works, I guess.
The other one they have offered up is for the Norris, where they have Cale Makar versus the Field. Makar comes in at -200, the Field at +160. Frank, you buying on Makar or buying on the Field?
I'm buying on the Field 100%. I think Quinn Hughes is bordering on the heart race, to be honest.
Wow.
So he's also the reigning winner, and they're very close. I'd say in a lot of ways, I like Quinn Hughes' candidacy better right now than Cale Makar.
Interesting. Quinn Hughes second on the board if you go to the full award at +200. Greg's?
So are you better off in that case if you're a gambler taking Quinn Hughes at +200 or the Field at +165 to get you someone else that might sneak into the mix late?
I don't know if there's anyone that really could sneak into the mix late. I know.
What if one of those guys gets hurt now?
Yeah.
All of a sudden, the door is wide open.
It is.
Remember Roman Josi? I'm not saying he will this year, but remember a few years ago when he came from like out of the clear blue sky and almost had a 100-point season? Like the way he closed over the last 40 games was insane.
Yeah. I think the one guy who's not getting a lot of love for the Norris and who definitely should be, Zach Werenski has had an unreal season overall. He's playing a ton of minutes. He's been on the ice for fewer goals against in both Makar and Hughes. I think Werenski, I see everybody saying it's a 2-horse race. Go dig into Werenski's numbers, man. Like it's not MVP, it's not MOP, it's just best defenseman. He's had an unreal season on a team that he doesn't have the offensive weapons in that Colorado has or that Quinn Hughes has in Vancouver. It's not even close, right? Especially without Johnny Gaudreau. So I just think Zach Werenski's not getting the respect for a really good year on a not very good team. He's been unbelievable for them.
He's third on the odds board at 18-1 though. So you're still getting a lot of juice on
Dude, I would take it. Like, honestly, he's been great. Like, I find sometimes the awards, like, and I'm one of the voters, but I take it serious. I don't care about last year. Last year's irrelevant. It's only based on this year. I give 2 shits about reputation. I vote on what the numbers show this year. And I think sometimes we get caught up in, well, reputation, this or that. And I'm like, no, who's had the best year this year? I don't care who I think is the better player all time. That's not the point. It's who's having a better year. And this year, Werenski is full marks. It is much closer if you dig into his numbers than Makar and Hughes being like 1-2 way ahead of everybody.
This next one, they aren't offering it, but I do think it's still a really good question just based on how the odds are going. Connor Hellebuck versus the Field for the Vezina. He is the leader at -120 right now. Greg's, what would you take?
Ooh, it's a tough one. The Jets start was so unreal, but since then they've just been kind of man. But when you're 15-1, it's going to take you a long time before you look, and everyone's like, "Oh, geez, they haven't been that great lately." Gustafsson in Minnesota has been really good all year. It's funny. They'll probably hurt themselves because neither one plays a ton. But Stolarz in Toronto has been out of this world as well for them. He just doesn't play as much, but. Yeah, I'd probably still take the Field in that one because I think there's some other guys that will close in.
I think you got to stick with the champ.
Yeah. It's not a bad bet either.
It's just not great value.
Yeah. The next on the list is Philip Gustafsson at +140. And then
I'll tell you what, though, he's been really good. His numbers are outstanding.
Yeah.
Did I dream this, or was there not some trade talk about him this summer?
Oh, no, you're not dreaming it. not only was there trade talk, they were more than willing to do it. They just didn't get anyone really to step up to do it.
That is
some of the best trades are the ones you don't make.
Crazy. But now they're faced with a situation where what do they do contract wise with him? Like, he might totally blow the whole thing up because, like, think about it from a long-term perspective. They're going, okay, Jesper Wallstedt, he's going to be our next guy, right?
Well, they're you know where they're lucky. So Fleury's done this year. I think too often teams rush to sign a guy after a career year. Gustafsson's got one more year. You can wait. Right now, I think he is.
He's also not old. He's only 26.
Yeah, and he's a UFA, so it's slightly different. But you know, when a guy has,
that's like what I mean. You're going to be this summer, July 1st. Do you extend Gustafsson or do you let him play into the final year of his deal?
I would look at it because you have all the power. And the thing is, if he has another great year, then now you've got two great seasons where you're like, okay, I'm more comfortable locking him in. It's the most volatile position in the game. And I know Shesterkin just got the huge money and good for him. And Gustafsson's probably like, awesome. I put up huge numbers. You know, I'm going to cash in. But if I'm Minnesota, I'm going to be like, okay, let's wait. Because Frank, I think the fact that they have another guy coming and next year Fleury's gone. So Wallstedt comes in and maybe he ends up playing close to 35 games.
He will. They already signed him to the contract. He's got a 2-year deal at 1.05 that they're going to, he's going to
play, but does he play more than a backup? You know what I mean? Like, does it come like a 45-37? Is it 47-35? What's the split? And then if it's that, well, now Gustafsson might not like it for his numbers, but from an organizational standpoint, it helps. It's like, you look, everybody wanted to sign Bouchard for $10 million in the summer. And I said, why? He's an RFA, number one. Number two, he just had like the greatest year he might ever have. Is he ever going to have 32 points?
To that point, though, if I'm Gustafsson, I'm going, so you wanted to trade me last summer and you kept me. I had a fantastic year. Now I'm going to need a new deal and you're not going to extend me. Trade me to someone that will. I want out. Because you know what? That. He may never have a better season than this. And this might be his one and only chance. What if he goes back into the high 800s in save percentage the following year in a contract year? This might be his one and only time to cash in.
Well, I agree with you. But that's why Bill Guerin, to me, you play the patient card. And it's a business, and teams too often, and just like players, you can't take it personal. The minute you take it personal, that's what happens. You got to be like, hey, you know what? Some of it's timing. Some of it's luck. Of course, they'll try to negotiate. For sure they will. But if I'm Bill Guerin, I'm going to go on patience because I have the advantage. If Gustafsson was a UFA this year, Frank, it's a totally different story, right? Like sometimes there's so much about life. It's just luck and timing. And if you hit that career year when you're going into UFA rather than 1 year earlier, you don't always cash in as much as you'd like.
Their cap situation, I think, is going to be the envy of the league. They just need to figure out what to do with Kaprizov. Not what to do, but how much to pay him.
Well, he's dude. Like, as I think Kaprizov doesn't get talked about.
Kaprizov getting the next Draisaitl type deal?
Oh, he's going to get a lot, and he should. Like, here's a fun. Go look at Kaprizov's goal for percentage right now, and his plus. He is plus 21 at even strength. Right? Plus 21 even strength. I know some people are like, I don't like plus minus. Goal for percentage. I'm like, it's the same thing.
He's never had a minus season.
No, like plus 21, dude. Like, go look at McKinnon and Rantanen. Those guys are like 5th and 6th in the NHL in goals against at even strength.
In his 108 point season, he was plus 27.
Yeah, so
he's a plus 73 player for his career.
Kaprizov,
does he get 14 a year?
Yes, I totally agree with you. I think he can. He's a driver. Like, he doesn't have a running mate like McKinnon, Rantanen, even Draisaitl, McDavid, who don't play a ton, but they play on the power play together. He doesn't have that in Minnesota, and he's killing it. So yeah, he's a $14 million player all day.
Okay.
Like, as a winger, compare, like, people talk so much because it's Toronto. Marner and Kaprizov. Who do you want? It's not even a debate. And Marner might get $1 million less than Kaprizov. I don't think he's the same player at all.
So I'm just doing some quick math on the fly. If they sign Kaprizov to 14, they've got pretty much all of their pieces locked up. Like Boldy's long-term, Faber's long-term, Eriksson Ek, even Foligno's extended a few years, Freddie Gaudreau, Yakov Trenin. They'll be at 70 million in a year in which the cap should be over 100. They're going to have like 30. That's with Kaprizov at 14. They're going to have 30 some million dollars to spend.
And Jake Middleton is on an unreal deal for them, right? He's great. Like you look at Jake Middleton and what he does for that team, he's making what, just over $4 billion? Like unreal contract. They got Brodin signed. You're right. Like Gustafsson would be the only guy.
The only question I have is when you're thinking 2 to 3 years down the road for the Wild is, aside from Faber and now you've got Yaremchuk, who's playing defense for you?
Brodin's only 31 though.
Only 31.
Middleton,
Middleton's
4 years.
But Spurgeon's 35. Bogosian's 34. Merrill's 32. I know not all of those guys are hugely impact pieces, but there has been a changing of the guard in terms of who's leading it. Obviously, Faber is part of that group, and Spurgeon just set the team record for most minutes played in franchise history. But they're gonna need to turn it over a little bit.
Well, Jake Middleton, man, he's only 28. He's just entering that great year. He's got 5 more years of being really good at that at his pay scale.
Okay, so that's 3 though. Well, you're going to include Brodin as 4?
Yeah, Brodin's 4.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's your 4. And I mean, Spurgeon, again, yeah, he's going to take a step back. But if on the right side, you have Faber playing God knows however many minutes a night, and Yaremchuk takes a step forward by the time Spurgeon starts to decline, then it's like, if Spurgeon's your captain playing on your third pairing. It's expensive, but like,
they can go out and find a good veteran third pair guy. I think Bill Guerin has, like, look at the defense they've acquired: Middleton, Faber, and Yaremchuk. I think Bill Guerin knows how to get D-men.
Yeah, it's been good work. All right, boys, there you go. That is a wrap on this week's edition of Buy or Sell, brought to you by Bet365.
Okay, I just wanted to amend one error that I had just before Tyler came in. Do you want to guess Linus Ullmark's save percentage over the last 5 games?
Last 5? I think he's like 925.
944.
There you go.
4-0-1. So, yeah, if you want to know how ass I am at analyzing goaltending trends, I was like Justin Wolf, front runner for the Calder. Since then, 0-3-0 with an 846, 3 games of 4-4 and 6 goals against.
Wow,
yeah.
And it's not against Wolf.
Stay hot, Frank. Stay hot.
You knew it was coming with Wolf simply because the more views, like the scouting, goalie coaches, not only for their own team, but the good ones, they scout the other team, and players do. And every goalie has tendencies and a weakness. And the more you see them, the more film they have on guys. And I think the other thing, Frank, was just eventually, like at Calgary, they had a great run, and Wolf was playing very well and his numbers were super high. It's hard as a rookie season, man. Like there's very few guys that just go and don't have a blip at some point, and not necessarily saying he's playing poorly, but you get a few unlucky bounces or the other team starts scoring. And I think the pressure mounts when your offense, you go into every game thinking, God, like I can't allow more than 3 or we have no chance to win.
Mm-hmm. Hey, before we get into the Stanley Cup talk, one other thing I wanted to pass along. I think one team that's been more active on the trade front than we'd realize has been the LA Kings. They've popped up in a few different conversations over the last week, and I can't put my finger on exactly what that team is looking for, but I find it really interesting for a team that's won 6 in a row and has really actually from start to finish this year been pretty consistent, one of the more consistent teams in the West. Wondering if they're viewing this as an opportunity to strike while the iron's hot and add to this team now.
Yeah, why not? Yeah, LA's pretty solid team. They've got, maybe they don't have a great player, but they got a lot of really, really good players.
I don't think it's dead, but I do think they talk to the Flyers about some of the forwards that they have.
Konechny?
No, I don't think it's imminent, but I do think that's, I'm not saying Konechny. I don't think they're trading Konechny. Konechny's in the first year,
Yeah.
or he didn't even start an 8-year deal yet.
His new contract. Yeah.
Yeah.
Farabee is what I meant to say. I said
No, I
Konechny's
think there's a whole group of guys that teams have been calling about: Frost, Farabee, Scott Lawton, Bobby Brink. The one guy that they're not willing to entertain a conversation on is Tyson Forrester. But the other guys and Rasmus Ristolainen.
Yeah.
Does Ristolainen make any sense in LA?
Well, if you
Probably
had, I
not
guess
for a team that has a bunch of right shot defensemen.
No,
but-
and especially like if Drew Doughty's coming back, then I don't see any chance.
Right.
Right. So, but yeah, the Kings are solid. The well, them and Edmonton both in the Pacific have kind of, well, Edmonton really has found their game here last month and a bit. So let's get to, we said we'd do this at the start of the year, at the third away and at the 2/3 of the season. We'll go with your top 5 today Stanley Cup contenders. Frank, we'll go from 5. Oh, maybe I don't even care if it's in any order, or do you want to put it in order, or just 2?
I don't think we need to put it in order. It's just masochism if you're doing it that way.
Okay.
I mean, what's honestly separating 5 from 1 at this point?
Yeah.
So in no particular order, I have the Colorado Avalanche, Vegas Golden Knights, Edmonton Oilers,
Yep.
Florida Panthers,
Yep.
and I'm going to surprise you. I'm going to say the Carolina Hurricanes.
Ooh. All right. I have Florida as well. I have the 2 teams who went to the Cup last year, Florida and Edmonton. Also Vegas, but the other 2 I don't have. Colorado, until they can show me that they can not give up goals at the rate they're giving up goals, I don't have them. And it's not
Come
just
on,
goaltending.
they just changed out their 2 goalies.
I know, but
you're saying you got to prove it.
Their defensive system is not is not great, right? So I don't love it. Anyway,
I think you're just before we move on from that, I think you're totally sleeping on the Avs. I think they're so good, they're so fast and so skilled.
They are fast. No
here's what gets me excited about the Avs. We had Jesse Montano from DNVR on our show yesterday, and he was saying that he believes the Avs have set a kind of internal deadline of 4 Nations face-off to get an answer from Gabriel Landeskog as to whether or not he's coming back. And if he isn't, to have that money to be able to spend at the deadline would be massive. And what if he could come back for the postseason?
Yeah.
It'd be something.
Well, it would be huge, but no team ever wins the Cup being bottom 5 in goals against. Just doesn't happen. So right now, today,
but you could take Georgiev and Annunen and they fired them into the sun.
I agree.
So,
but it's not, I watched, it wasn't, look at how many quality chances they're giving up. It wasn't just their goaltender. So that's all I'm saying. Today, we'll see it 2/3, but today I don't have Colorado because I don't think you can win the Cup when you give up that many goals. So they're not in my top 5. My other team that I will have in my top 5, and I know your head's going to explode here because this is based on how they're playing right now. The Toronto Maple Leafs, who have excellent goaltending, either one. They don't give up a lot. Their best goal scorer has been Slow. I firmly believe he can heat up, so I'll take Toronto. And the surprise team of the whole league, I got to give them some respect. I like the Washington Capitals. I look at the makeup of that team. There's nothing like they lost their best goal scorer and they haven't missed a beat. And then he's going to come back. I like the Caps. I got to give them some love. And
I really like the Caps, and I think they defend really well. I just want to see a little bit more. Like they're first in the East in goals for. They're second in goals against. Their goalies have been outstanding. I love their attention to detail. I like a lot of parts of their game, and I like the way that their younger guys have taken a step forward. By the way, new Frankly Speaking dropping tomorrow with leading Caps point getter Dylan Strome. I mean, where that came out of the clear blue sky this season. I mean, he's on track for 106 points. Are you kidding me? His previous career high was in the 60s.
Yeah.
So is something like that going to continue all year long? I just want to see more. I'm not saying he can't do it or they can't do it. Before I put them in that category, I know the Avs can do it. I know the Golden Knights can do it. I'm pretty sure the Oilers can do it. The one team that I'd be willing to sub out at this moment in time is Carolina.
Yeah. I mean, Carolina. Yeah. The other team we didn't give any love to, the Wild. That's my one team I had right on the outside. When they get Joe Eriksson Ek for sure. I love Kaprizov. He's a difference maker, but you need strength down the middle. And that's my one. If I have a slight concern of the Wild, that would be my concern today for them.
Speaking of not giving any love, I mean, neither one of us seems like we were even contemplating the Jets.
No, because the Jets had an unreal start. And then since then, they're under 500.
So they're just totally out for you.
No, they're close, but I like the Jets had a great
start. Are they on your outer circle?
You know what, Frank, we'll go back. Right now, the Jets, they're the Brian Savage of the NHL. They're the star of October who looked like a 55 goal scorer every year and then would tail off. Like the Jets are good, but I don't have them as a contender because I didn't have them as a contender at the start of the year. And I'm just not sure where they're better. That's like their start was so unreal, but now you go to be not even 500 team for the next 13 games. So yeah,
that is the most wacky reference. Like, honestly, you've had a few and like you're the schedule master and all these things, but you pulled Brian Savage straight out of your ass.
Buddy, he was Mr. October of hockey, which is
okay. So I looked it up now that you said it because I needed to know. Brian Savage career splits, month of October, 87 games, 44 goals.
Yeah.
But he had a few like November, 35 goals.
Yeah,
January,
he started the season
goals.
good and then he would just die.
Yeah.
Like look at his what are his numbers in January and February?
January, 34 goals is fine.
Okay.
February, 16 goals. Yikes.
Yeah. Yeah. So 44 to 16, like good early on, and then he would just peter out. But he would like, I'd probably have to go year by year. Like Brian Savage used to be at the top of the goal or right near the top in October. And you'd be like, holy cow, this guy's unreal. Every year it was just a continual drop off for him. So it's one of those oddity ones that I always remember those type of guys.
Where'd that come from?
Yeah. We were talking about great starts. And so he
just
was always
like a totally innocuous NHLer, 674 games, made it to the other side of the lockout.
Yeah. Those who know. Brian Savage, killer in October. Our Stanley Cup predictions, or rankings, I should say, brought to you by Fountain Tire, where they specialize in tire and auto service. So you don't have to settle for a good deal or good customer service because at Fountain Tire, you're going to get both. They'll treat your vehicle like it's their vehicle. And if you need new tires, stop in now. You have until Saturday, where you can save up to $225 on a set of 4 select tires, including Goodyear, plus $50 off any service of $150 or more. Go to fountaintire.com. And Frank, like, what do you make of the Leafs? Like, I know everyone says we can't talk about them until playoffs, but they have improved. And like Stolarz, here's my question on Stolarz. He's like, are you concerned at all about workload for a guy like that who's never started more than 35 games?
Yes and no. Like, I'm concerned because he hasn't done it. And so it's just a question mark, but he's also a big guy who takes care of himself. And I think in a perfect world, down the stretch with as well as he's played, he still gets like 55 to 60% of the starts. I think you have to keep Joe Woll engaged. Yes. I think you have to keep him playing. He's not to say that Stolarz can't be, but he's looked upon or thought of as the goalie of the future for the Leafs. So I think you have to keep him in the mix and allow for the possibility that in a playoff series, either one of these guys could start games. And the Leafs goaltending has been so good, though, that it still has, I know they've defended better. It's covered up some of their issues for sure.
And I was actually way high. He's only ever started 24 games in the season. So That's the most. He's
Yeah,
already at
his
16.
most is 28 appearances, right?
Yeah, 28 appearances, 24 starts. So, now eventually you're going to have to do it, right? Lots of backups eventually become a starter, right? Dwayne Rolson, some other guys. Now, he was obviously much later in his career, but so you're right about his size. He probably should not wear down, maybe quicker than a smaller goalie would. And it's not like he's going to start 60 games or anything unless, Wall gets hurt. But, even jumping up to 45, I talked to a lot of goalies and they say it's not so much the physical toll, it becomes the mental challenge of always being, ready as a goalie. And they say that sometimes is more tiring than actual physical.
I don't know if Tyler's still here, but if he is, can he pop back in? Because we were talking about this yesterday about how just on the scrap heap Stolarz was.
I turned off my studio lights already, so I'm joining you from the absolute dark. But it is crazy. Like, remember Greg's when he was an Oiler for that half a season, the last game of the season, if they would have played him, they could have kept his RFA rights, and they opted to play Mikko Koskinen in game 82. And we're like, no, Stolarz, who cares? Like, go UFA, who cares about you?
Yeah, and the Flyers, he was a second round pick that they were like, just a guy. Like, team could use goaltending. The Oilers, same thing. Like, he was a cast off in a few different places. Is that a lesson in teams just poorly evaluating goaltending, or is that in a story of a guy who just got better and better?
It's a
I think it's
goalies are
maybe a bit of both because, it's hard, I think, for any team. He had played, I think 6 games in Edmonton. And if they thought Koskinen was their guy, they weren't going to have room for both of them, obviously.
Who would have ever thought Koskinen was the guy, honestly? Not
even the guy. They thought he was better chance to be their backup guy. I don't think they were ever, other than Peter Chiarelli, who signed him to that asinine contract. But
holy God.
Even Stolarz at the time, because then he went to Anaheim, and it's not like the Ducks played him. Like, he played 1 game in the NHL the next year and then 8 games the year after that. Like, it was still 3 years later before he became even kind of a consistent, and then he was a backup, right? That's when he made his 28 appearances in 2022. So it was still 3 years
the
later.
league in save percentage as a 31-year-old. How could all these teams along the way be wrong?
Well, were they wrong at that time? Because they probably weren't thinking, hey, we think this guy at 31 is going to be this. They're like, what does he look now at 27?
He did like 5 full seasons in the AHL.
Oh, yeah. And then 1 year, didn't he get hurt? He didn't even play the 1 season, right? In 18, didn't he miss like a whole year?
Yeah. And that's when he was kind of on his way out.
Yeah. So it's another great story of perseverance. And I think like the line is so thin for guys who can be in the NHL and then guys who are in the AHL, and confidence and opportunity is such a big thing. And like, look at Jake Middleton.
I was going to say, so we just talked about Dylan Strome. Go back a few years to Chicago. Healthy scratch on opening night. Healthy scratch in 7 of the first 11 games of the year for the Hawks. Jeremy Colleton gets fired, okay? And they go through this stretch. He actually finishes the year pretty strong. He still, in 69 games, comes up with 22 goals and 48 points. They could not give him away at the deadline. And then they didn't qualify him. I'm not even saying that they made a mistake in doing any of those things, but he goes to Washington, signs a 1-year deal. He mentioned on the pod that they were the only team that had offered him a deal, and it was only 1 year. So he goes, I'm going to go in and prove it. And then by January, he's played so well and has been such a good fit with Ovechkin that he signs a 5-year deal at the time that everyone was like, you gave him a 5-year deal? What are you doing?
Yeah, now it looks great.
Now it's an absolute bargain.
Yeah.
And he's still only 27. This is like, we're not talking about a no pedigree guy. We're talking about the number 3 overall pick from 2015 that was traded from Arizona to Chicago for Nick Schmaltz. And by the way, outscored McDavid in those years in Erie. Like, not just like Joe, this isn't Joe Blow. And teams are still not quite understanding it or figuring it out, or it's fit or it's confidence or whatever it might be. It's just amazing how this league works sometimes in player evaluation.
Well, confidence. I think there's bias in everybody's evaluation. You and I have bias. Everybody has a bias. And, if the successful teams will find a way to not have their bias control their decisions. Easier said than done. But, those are some great examples. And, Stolarz, Middleton, guys playing key roles on their teams. Strome, same thing. It's great to see. I love it. And it's always a reminder for people that, and that's why, Frank, I lose my marbles when I see minor hockey associations and people freaking out over 9 and 10-year-olds. And this guy for sure is going to play. And I'm like, you have no idea.
Play what?
Stop it.
He's going to play beer league. Is that what we're determining now? Because that's what everyone's going to play.
You have no clue, and just let them have fun. And you should try to develop as many kids as you can in your organization, not just your tier 1 or AA players at 8 or 9. It's the most asinine thing that still goes on in minor hockey associations across the country.
Because it's all about money. We've reached the stage of for-profit youth sports, which should be an oxymoron.
Embarrassing. Frankie, have yourself a great weekend. We will chat with you on Monday. Lots of interesting storylines, some great matchups actually coming up. Lots of division leaders taking on each other. So we'll talk about that. That's the rundown brought to you by Fountain Tire and Bet365. Get in the game. Use the promo code NATION at Bet365.
What's up, hockey fans? If you enjoyed that video, then you need to be hitting the subscribe button right here at Daily Faceoff. Exclusive interviews and analysis from our hockey insider Frank Saravalli, fantasy updates from Brock Sagan, and a daily live show at noon Eastern Monday through Friday. You don't want to miss any of the fantastic content, so hit that subscribe button.